Hey guys, Trevor Hold here. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Who Are We podcast. Today I've got a special guest, Peter Daniels with me. Hey Pete.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. Just before we get going, I'll just give you a bit of a disclaimer. This is being recorded. We're going to upload this to YouTube with a podcast and put some links on LinkedIn or whatnot, just to try and give some sort of I don't know, just conversation around identity and who we are, and hopefully try and encourage other people to explore who they are. So that's what this is all about, just general conversation, and see where that leads, eh?
Sounds good.
I'll get straight into it. So who's Peter Daniels, and what does he stand for?
Well, I'm an artist, a Canadian artist living in White Rock, British Columbia. I started art school when I was 17 on pushed by a high school art teacher to go and study art. She gave me a good recommendation, and that became my path. So I studied commercial art, and then I went into fine art, and I was an art master at a private school. I was then went on to prison for men, where I taught art therapy, crafts and that sort of thing. And I was there for almost 10 years, went through a massive prison riot and was a Crown witness, had the mafia on my back if I testified, went to court and all that. Anyway, I left that teaching position, and during that period, I met a mystic who had time traveled back to Giza in Egypt, and she had channeled Christ with a help from a seer from the other side, translated into English. And it's called A Tapestry of the Life of Christ. And her work is archived into UBC Library, which is the University of British Columbia, for her contributions to mystical writings. Her name was Olga Park. What she was teaching at that time was visualizing with your mind's eye, your third eye, and listening with your inner ear.
Okay.
And by doing that on a regular basis, it's meditation and prayer. She was huge on routine.
Yep.
And by doing that, you can empower yourself.
Yep.
So along the way, I also had a chance of reading a book called Mutant Message from Down Under, which was written by a doctor from New York, and she had gone to Australia to help the Aboriginal kids who were breathing out gasoline and getting high and hurting their brains. And her husband had passed away at the age of 50, and she felt that this was her calling. So she went to Australia, and she was working with, she built a co-op with a group of Aboriginal people, and she was honored by the elders. They wanted to show her respect. So they sent a driver in a Jeep, and he sat in silence for about 3.5, 4 hours. She had her hair done and a new gown and everything else. And they drove off into the desert, where they met some elders. And they said, we'd like to take you on a walkabout to honor what you had done with our youth, how you helped them. We'd like to show you our methods. So they said, we're not going to force you to do this, but it's about a 3 or 4 month walkabout. You can make up your mind, but you can't come in with the watch and shoes and clothes that you have on you. You have to wear our attire. And so you have about half an hour. You can make up your mind, or we'll drive you back to your hotel. So she said, thought about it, and she said, what not, right? So she went on the walkabout, and she said the first 3 or 4 days were the hardest because her feet got so burned and calloused, they formed like a hoof.
Yeah.
And she went on this walkabout, and they didn't try and structure anything to show her.
Yeah.
They just wanted to let it happen naturally, unfold naturally.
Yeah.
And they had a young man who was leading the procession, and I guess he had fallen down a mine shaft that was drifted over with sand. Didn't see it, and he broke his upper leg bone, the femur.
Yeah.
And it was a compound break.
Yeah.
They had him up within 15 minutes. They formed a human chain, and they took a poultice from the women's menstruation that they had kept.
Uh-huh.
They put that on the wound, but they also pulled his leg into traction, and then they put their hands on top, but didn't touch with a prayer of intention.
Really?
He was up and leading the group with a slight limp the next morning.
Oh, really?
So this is sort of the type of stuff we're talking about using your mind's eye and your inner listening. They also walked into a huge swarm of bugs that were flying at them. They could see them 100 miles away, and they said to her, "Stand still. Be calm. They're going to come in and go up your nose, in your ears, and clean you out." And
Really?
this lasted for about 20 minutes. And they said, try and focus on something that's very beautiful, because this could disturb your sense of well-being, right? And so she did. And she thought she was going to go a bit wacko there, she said, for a while, but then they left. And she said she could hear and smell like she'd never in the past experienced after that. So that was their way of connecting to the universe and to the within. So the journey that I've experienced is about listening to the within and visualizing, and the contact that we can have with the universe. Olga Park has since passed away, and so has my dad and stuff like that.
Yep.
But they come in on a vibration level.
Yep.
When they want to, when I need it, not when I want it. Yep. But if I'm in a sense of maybe a bit of I've tried to climb a mountain to get to the top, and I'm at the apex and something's not quite happening, it's the last few struggles of that step, and there's a bit of a mini crisis or something like that emotionally, right?
Yep.
They come in and they prop me up with good energy, and they say the odd word of encouragement and enlightenment, and then they're gone.
Yep.
And so we're on this journey here, right, as individuals, but the universe is for all of us.
Yep.
It's not cut in stone that you're allowed in and this guy's not allowed in. There's no status quo, right?
Yeah.
And she left us a communion.
Yep.
Olga Park did. Yep. And in the communion, there's a phrase that says, "Whosoever will, let them take the waters of life freely." And that's so when you come to an obstacle or a turn in the road or something, and you feel like you're stuck, I go back to that and I go, well, whosoever will. So in other words, the stream can bend, right? And you have to be flexible to go around it and not try and change others.
Yep.
that aren't on your page or aren't ready in their thinking or whatever. Just go around them.
Yep. So that's a lot to do with circle of influence, isn't it? Like what you can control what you do, but you can't control what other people think or what other people do. So if they're not sort of on track, and you're talking about timing as well, isn't it? Because the sun's going to come up at a certain time, regardless on what you want it to do. It's going to the timing is going to be the timing. So it
She
sounds
also
similar to what you're
talked
saying.
about,
Yep.
she talked about the difference between atonement and alignment.
Yeah.
You know, and we came from a background what was, well, you got to atone for your mistakes, you
Yep.
know, and that gets heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where alignment is, well, what did I learn?
Yeah. Yeah.
And by stumbling,
Yeah.
you know, like we
Yeah.
often stumble, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
she said to me,
atonement. Can you just help us with the definition? Atonement's a bit like punishing, or cleansing yourself, is it?
well, atonement is like punishment, but alignment,
Yep.
you don't look at the mistake as a heavy, you look at the mistake as a learning
Learning.
process.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
you see it with different eyes and you go, oh, what did I learn? Okay, I won't repeat that pattern because that's not working, but I will go on with this pattern because that pattern's working for
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's the flow in the river, in the ocean, or in the stream that you talk about.
and you're not getting hung up
Yeah.
on the emotional mistake. You're
Mm.
you're going, well, I wasn't there. That's why I made the mistake. and so you go lighter on yourself instead of heavy on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what attracts others because you're not stuck and wallowing in the nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because wallowing in nonsense is just wallowing in nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
It sounds like that's like trying to be kind to yourself in a way.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
be kind to yourself and be kind to the world because you're only growing.
Yeah. 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 And so I'm hearing Peter, that you're sort of trying to develop your third eye and your inner ear to try and experience the whole world as a galaxy, like you're sort of accepting that energy exists and helps you
Yeah.
when you need it, not when you want it, but when it needs it, energy will appear and help you through some of these battles. But you're sort of trying to be kind to yourself and control what you can control with your own emotions and the timing of things, but not get hung up on other people that aren't on the same page as you.
Well, there was, and I'm going to get a little bit biblical here, but the Old Testament, an eye for an eye, right?
Yep.
And then the New Testament, when Christ came along, he said, turn the other cheek. You can't change anybody. Move on.
Yeah.
You know, and it's energy, like, you know, turning the other cheek, that throws a total mathematical equation into it, right?
Yep.
And so if we start looking at any mystic, whether it's Buddha or Christ or whoever, if we start looking at them as a metaphysical teaching and not just an emotional reaction to it, we get more out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's based on math.
Yeah.
You know, Da Vinci was onto it. He took if you look at the credit card, you know, or a business card, it's a rectangle, right?
Yeah.
And within it, there's 3 triangles.
Yeah.
If you want to draw them. And then you keep drawing, and there that triangle goes on to infinity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the when you look at the infinity of it, he called it everything within that was the golden means, and they called it art phi, right? Well, when you use your mathematical mind on metaphysics, instead of emotional reaction, oh, this guy's talking about Buddha, you know, who the heck is that, you know? If you go, or Christ, if you go into at the top here on the cross, you know, there's this triangle, and that's the mind of Christ. You know, it's very high, and they're showing that now in paintings from the past that was there in the portrait of him, right? So you know, we've got metaphysical leaders, whether it's Christ or Buddha or whoever it is that you're interested in following or being part of that path,
Yeah.
that have a lot to offer, not just on an emotional level, but on a very cosmic level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I think, when the others that have ascended, our friends that have passed, and they come to us and they're talking about, they come to us on a vibrational level
Yeah.
that's quite high. So it's up to us to try and absorb that and meet it.
Yeah.
And because they're not feeding fools,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. You got to be in that
they,
position to be able to accept that energy, haven't you?
that's right. So we, and we're living on this human level with the world, and there's all these different people of different psychic awarenesses, and some of them are high, but some of them are very low, right?
Yeah.
And so, we have to swim again, coming back to the river, we have to swim around the ones that are kind of nasty, and avoid, like that old saying, desiderata, avoid people who are really loud and aggressive and noisy, and go placidly forward, right?
Yeah.
So we've got tools at our hands, and that's what I'm saying. That it's there.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back to your comment. I found it very interesting that you mentioned, and I'm not much of a Bible scholar in reality, but you mentioned about the Old Testament, an eye for an eye, and the New Testament, turn the cheek, and you suggested that when you turn your cheek, energy is bouncing off your face symbolically, I suppose, because you're not wasting energy on these things and not getting hung up on them, and you're moving forward and spending that energy on things that matter to you rather than getting hung up in the past. Is that how you see it?
Yes, well, and it's a paradigm that you're shifting into, right?
Yeah.
Like it's again, it's mathematical, right? Based on logic.
Yeah.
So when you take the pyramid and the hourglass, and then they meet, it forms the Star of David, right?
Yep.
And each one of them is a triangle. And if you look around it, if you sculpt it, it becomes even more dimensional. So there's different planes, with different people, different relationships.
Yeah.
We're not all where you and I are right now.
Yeah.
When you meet somebody else, they have a take which they bring to the table, right?
Yep.
So if we're open to them that are positive people, they enrich us, right, as well, because we all have something to bring to the table.
Yeah, and they give us depth. They give us more depth by allowing them, in our mind and in our energy.
It's like a harvest of fruit and vegetables and everything else, right?
Yeah,
everybody's bringing something, right?
Yeah. And you just got the disclaimer that it's got to be like positive energy. You don't want to let the negative shit and all the crap in there, do you? So So you want positive.
Screen it.
Yes, screen it. Yeah. No, that's very good insight. And I'd like to thank you for talking about that with us today. So basically, I just got some notes here. You're talking about your mind's eye, your inner listening, and getting into a routine with meditation and letting in energy from the galactic sort of guide you through life, and just avoiding negative people, trying to harvest the fruit of positive people, and enlighten yourself.
Closing off the lower chakra, like the solar plexus, and opening the highest chakra, if you want to call it, right?
Yeah. That's and that's amazing. So and I just mentioned again, you talked about a mutant message from down under. Who was that by again? Sorry.
I'd have to look it up. It's been 20 years since I did it, but I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it. Yeah.
No, that's great. And the other thing is, the other thing I got from that is just be kind to yourself. Not so much atonement, but more alignment, and just aligning yourself with some of these outcomes rather than and turning them into learnings rather than punishing yourself. That was another thing I got from you.
There is a big universe.
Yeah.
And we're part of it, and we have to learn how to align with the cosmos, get on the cosmic wavelengths, right? And get off of karma.
Yeah. That's
You
great.
know, she was talking about the new earth. And if you think about no revenge, no hate, no jealousy, all the lower, if you get rid of the lower intentions of, you know, you find the new earth.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Is there like there must be heaps of them lower spectrums. Is there, what do you say, judgment? Yeah, there must be like thousands of them, is there? Yeah.
Revenge, hatred, jealousy, envy, you know, those are all the lower vibes, right?
Yeah.
So with the new earth, they've overcome that stuff, right? They've risen.
Yeah.
And their energy is pure.
Yeah. Love, respect.
Yeah. Respect. Yeah. And encouragement of you know, she didn't say go and chase people. She said to attract them when they're ready.
Yeah.
And she also said that, you know, if you go and chase people and try and change them when they're not ready, you're actually trespassing.
Yeah.
Because the soul has to grow on its own. It has to find its way. You know, we can encourage people, but we shouldn't just hold their hand, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned too, and it's a very good point, something that I talk about, the timing of things. Things are going to happen when they're going to happen, and the energy from the universe is going to provide to you what you need when you need it, and there's not much you can do about it as a mere mortal. You know, we can't control some of this.
It's and the journey is, you know, we went to Italy a few years back, and I just watched the elder people. They were so happy with. They were riding this tractor. The woman was on the hitch and the man was driving it. They were coming to get their grapes in October to harvest them, to take in for their own winemaking, right? And they're in their 80s, and they're like two little kids. Sunny morning, and we were there looking at one of the burial grounds that all our friends that were with us, her family was there, right? They came in and they left like just celebrating life. It was so much joy, and I went, they've got it, you know, like.
Yeah. And we're only on this planet for, you know, for a short time, so we've got to try and, like you say, enjoy it. Like, it's just amazing how much stress and that and artificial stuff that modern society tries to put on our shoulders, and sometimes we forget that we're alive and enjoyment.
It's bait. It's sort of fraud bait.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
But when you see them growing stuff with their hands and the vibration of the earth, I was a potter for many, many years. So I was with clay, and it was very alive. And I often wondered, well, why did I like clay so much? Well, it's the earth, and it's got a vibe in it. It's like gardening, right?
Yeah.
And you come out, you're smiling away, and you got clay all over you, right?
Yeah. I do a bit of that with me. I got these cows. We breed them here for pets. Miniature cows, and do a bit of farming and that. And you're right. It just gives you another perspective of life, doesn't it? Things will happen in their own time, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And it's quite interesting. Yeah.
It's relationship.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And maybe in the future we can catch up again and continue our conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you too.
Thanks, Peter.
With you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day. See ya.
Bye.